Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, we've got a good podcast for you this week. More resources for you in your restoration process. We've got Steve with Speedo King on there. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but don't forget, support those that support Let's Talk Dubs. Those that support us, VW Trends Magazine, a magazine for the people, by the people. Don't forget to subscribe today. Lots of cool stuff happening, and VW Trends will be sponsoring the actual poker tournament taking place Thursday during the One Crazy Weekend event. So you'll want to make sure you get situated for that. Go book your rooms today at letstalkdubs.com for our One Crazy Weekend happening October 2nd through the 4th in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. So special room rates available at letstalkdubs.com, and that's where you'll also register for the weekend. Also, just heard from Clyde Berg. He's going to be coming out to be part of our bowling tournament as well. So that's exciting, and we're looking forward to having Clyde out here in Las Vegas and kind of bringing that tradition back of the bowling tournament that everybody used to be a part of back in the day. So that's stuff to look forward to again at One Crazy Weekend. Not to mention there's 80s cars going to be debuting. There's cars from builders from way back in the day that they're going to be building and finishing to debut at the show, as well as heavy hitters that are coming out. We've got a separate section for cars that want to be judged for the best of the best, for the $1,000 best of show prize. It is a separate group. The separate group that's going to be out there is not going to be eligible for a top 20 award. You are only going to be going for best of the best, right? And that's going to be $1,000 cash prize. Plus the following year, your rooms and stuff are taken care of for One Crazy Weekend. So I'm excited to see that happening. If you've got a car that you think it's got what it takes to win best of show, it's going to be judged by judges for best of show in custom car category, fully restored, whatever the case is. If it's there, it's going to be judged if you're going to be in the heavy hitter section. So, but there's also the top 20 award this year, top 20 gold plated chains that hang around your neck, where we pick our 20 favorite cars. So, and those don't necessarily need to be the most shiniest and the most detailed. Sometimes it's a car that's just cool as can be, and you snatch up an award. So lots of rad stuff happening that weekend. There's going to be the poker tournament taking place Thursday. There's going to be strip cruise and bowling tournament on Friday, and Saturday is the day of the car show and the poker run, the world famous poker run. So you'll be looking forward to coming out for One Crazy Weekend. If you've been, you know what it's all about. If you haven't been, change how you are and make sure you guys get to One Crazy Weekend. Also, Ross Wolf is one of our sponsors. Ross Wolf, high quality aftermarket parts for enthusiasts by enthusiasts. Go check out the stuff that Jared and Jason have on their website, rosswolf.com. Go check it out today. Use the code LTD10 for 10% off your order. So go pick out some cool stuff for your VW today at rosswolf.com. Icon pistons. You guys want top quality, high performance pistons. There's only one piston to go with, and that's Icon pistons. Currently, they're made in 85.5, 92s, and 94s, 3 different pin heights. Go check them out. Where are you going to buy Icon pistons at? Well, I'm going to tell you that in just a minute, but first, let me pump up the pistons a little bit. These are made from 4032 alloy, which allows you to run tighter piston-to-wall clearances, so you can get down, keep that compression, and make that motor put out maximum power. They've got 2 1.5 millimeter top rings and then a 4 millimeter bottom ring, which makes getting new rings for these things a lot easier. And also each piston gets M42 skirt coating to protect against dry startups, as well as give an extra layer of protection. The skirt profile is optimized for stability and performance in boxer engines. And how would these guys know? Because these guys make millions of pistons every year. And now the Big Boy Piston Company put out a line because there's a VW dude that snuck in through the back door and said, "Hey boss, let's make some Volkswagen pistons." So the highest performance pistons that you can get right now, Icon pistons. Go get them checked out today. Where can you buy these Icon pistons? Type E Motorsports, CB Performance, RevMaster, the Dub Shop, and Churco Performance. So go check it out today. You want the best pistons? Make sure you only get Icon pistons. And as promised, let's get into this week's podcast with Speedo King, Steve Burdett. He's been a long time in the VW hobby. He's got backgrounds with scooters like Eric Lucier we talked about. He's got a lot of. He used to build surfboards for years, so it's a cool conversation that goes to a lot of different directions. But Steve Burdett's the man when it comes to getting your Speedo redone. So go check him out at speedoking.com, man. Good guy. He's done a couple Speedos for me, and I wanted to get him on here and get his story. So, well, guys, let's get into it this week. Speedo Talk with Steve Burdett from Speedo King on Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like.
Okay, everybody. So on today's podcast, one of the things that we stare at all the time in our VWs in the illustrious array of gauges that are there is pretty much the single speedometer. And if you have a single speedometer, some of your early vehicles, and you're looking to have it rebuilt, the guy that I use is Steve Burdett, and he's with Speedo King. And on today's podcast, that's who we have as our guest. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, so, I've had you do a few speedometers for me for my chop top, which has the 68 Speedo, the green face gauge with the internal gas gauge. Kind of the way we start with your particular case. Now, are you a Volkswagen guy in addition to this? Or
yes.
So
no.
The way that we always start the podcast is, what's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
Okay. My first car was a 65 Beetle with a sunroof. I had that for probably 3 years. And being it was stock and it was a 1200 engine, I wanted something with a little more power. And I found a really nice, clean 71 Super Beetle, low mileage, and it had a 1600 engine. Anyways, I bought that and I sold that first car to my brother. For $300 at that time. This is back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Let's see then. I had that for a while, and then I wound up doing a transaction with someone else, and I got a diesel Rabbit at that time because of the gas crunch. And that was about it. And then I also had another Beetle. But I had 4 in my life, and then I got away from Volkswagens, and finally got back to him about 15 years ago. I got my first car ever back from my brother.
Yeah.
So I've been driving it ever since. And I'm kind of a scooter guy from way back as well with Vespas and Lambrettas.
Right. Well, we've had another scooter guy on the podcast, which is, Lucier is his last name. First name is Dave, 2nd Avenue Scooters in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, Eric.
Yes. I don't know why I was thinking Dave. Yeah, Eric Lucier was on the podcast because he's an old school VW guy, big MP collector back in the day. And so we've had him on the podcast. And so, he does a lot of scooter restorations and things like that. And so,
yes,
so how do you get into doing speedometers? Like, how does that evolution come into? And what's your day job?
Okay. Well, thanks for asking. I got into doing scooters just by being a scooterist and having several at one time and restoring them. And I got into doing the speedometers because I couldn't really find the parts at our local shop that had new old stock pieces. So I wound up making some of the pieces myself, fooling around with a male-female mold to make the lens, and then doing some laser cutting to do the dials. That's pretty much how that got started back when I was doing scooters and actually wasn't a Volkswagen guy. But since I've incorporated both, and I really enjoy it. Now, my day job used to be making surfboards.
Oh,
but
really?
Over the last, I've been doing that for about 40 years. And over the last 10, 12 years, I'd say, the industry really declined, where there was a couple of glassing shops in the area where I worked, so there was a little competition. And now all 3 of those shops that were within easily a block of each other, only 2 are around anymore. And the one I worked at finally closed their doors after some 40 years, just because of the market and all that, and things going up in price, like perhaps the rent and materials and things like that.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of overlaps, right? There's the Volkswagens are kind of counterculture. The scooters are kind of like, it's all part of the punk new wave scene as kind of a whole evolution to everything, which is interesting. And so I'm curious, did you start out like getting into new wave music and stuff like that, which then the transitions like the cool counterculture Volkswagens, then even more countercultures like the Lambrettas and the Vespas
True.
and all that kind of stuff. And so it's interesting because, you've seen that stuff kind of, there's just this pull to kind of a vintage kind of lifestyle.
True. Yeah. Back then, when I had scooters, I liked, of course, a lot of different bands at the time, but I really got into ska, the Specials, English Beat, Madness, things like that.
Right. First wave ska. Is that what they're calling it?
Pretty much. Yeah. Or two-tone for that matter.
Yeah.
But, and then another type of music that's really popular with scooterists was mod. So whether it was the Jam or bands that were similar to them.
Well, yeah, that's what they were all called, right? Mods. The mods.
Pretty much.
When you were on having your scooter, and then the whole the accessories for the scooter was mirrors, right? Like how many mirrors could you put on there, right?
Mirrors and crash bars, and even like some types of pennants.
Yeah.
There's racks like for the front end or the rear, and even like a little raccoon tail on the top of one of your like a pole that would have it.
Yeah.
There's some that are really deluxe, but that wasn't my thing so much. I just liked having stock, clean looking scooters.
Yeah, and with the scooters, I mean, the scooters are air cooled. They're like air cooled 2-stroke, and they have like a shift. They're like a shifter on the like a wrist shifter. Yeah.
Yes, on the left-hand side, they're a twist grip. You squeeze the clutch, and then you flip it forward for first, then back to neutral, and then second, third, and fourth are all forward like that. It's. I think I described that properly. I can see it in my mind, grabbing the clutch
now,
and click, and then back. Yeah,
with
then back.
With the scooters weren't really offered here in the States normally.
Well, originally, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Vespas were featured as an all-state scooter through Sears, and that was probably late 50s. And I think that was happening more than the actual Vespa setting up locations throughout the U.S., but they did eventually come over. And then they're kind of, in my opinion, they were pretty strong then, and then they got stronger probably in the late 70s. And then after that, nothing really came in much. In the late 70s, it was the P series, or even just before that, it would have been some of the models like 150 Super, the Rally 180, things like that.
And they used to have, when I was doing the podcast with Eric, he said they would have these big scooter rallies where they used to do one in Vegas, I think, with a bunch of people road tripping the Vespas and Lambrettas. Well, what's the top speed on those things?
On mine, I have two bikes, and they're both from the 50s, and they're only 3 speeds. I can go probably about 35, 40 on those. But there's some, like the P series back in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. They had a 200cc engine, and they're a 4-speed, and they were pretty much freeway legal. Although I rode on the freeway once, and I was really uncomfortable. Just the little wheels and people flying by as fast as they did. So that's all it took. I rode about 3 miles on the freeway, and then I exited and haven't gone back.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but yes, the rallies, I did one of the rallies in Las Vegas. I've gone as far as Colorado Springs to do a rally some 20 years ago, maybe longer. But they're fun, and it's pretty amazing when you can take off and go for a pretty good distance and not break down.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about your line of work and building surfboards and things like that. It's working with your hands, but it's not as detailed as like speedometer rebuilding. Because with laying glass and stuff like that, it's more of a long, like a long process, long flow kind of a whole thing there, and the Speedo stuff is like real concentrated, real like fine detail. How do you, how do you, I mean, is it just something that when you work detail work like that, you could just kind of get in a zone?
Well, with about speedometers or with the surfboards?
Well, how do you transition from like doing, because they seem to me like almost like two different personality types that would work. Like, because I'm sure you met a lot of guys that build surfboards that wouldn't have the patience to do a speedometer.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. When I'm laminating and all, it's something I've done for so long and so many. And it's basically what I do is I put the fiberglass on. So when I get a board, I blow it off, or let's say I'm doing 5 or 6. I line them up, blow them off, flip them, blow off the other side, put tape on the fin boxes, which are already in. And then I cut a patch for the tail around the fins just to reinforce that area. Mm-hmm. Then I pull out a layer of fiberglass, cut around it, then roll the cloth back if it's getting a label, because we put that underneath. Get a bucket of resin, catalyze it properly. And by properly, I mean not too hot, because if you can't get it finished in time, you got a real mess on your hands. Yeah. Get it done, tuck. It's just a pattern. You pretty much just start one way. When you go to tuck it and overlap the glass, you start in the middle and work towards the ends. And pretty much just check afterwards when you're done, see if there's any strings or bubbles, which can occur. But normally the bubble would be there if you didn't press it firm enough to push them out. And then as far as the speedometers go, I just took it on some 20 years ago, fooling around and seeing if I could do anything to make them look better. And with the Volkswagen stuff that I got into shortly after that, it was great because the video Speedos are made very well, and they don't fade like the, and by fade, I mean, they will fade if left in the sun enough. But with the Vespa stuff, those are plastic dials, plastic lenses, and they get faded and brittle, and pretty much to the point where it gets so much sun that the screen printed ink that would tell you 0 to 60 or 0 to 80 is almost non-existent. You can't really see it. So I guess what I'm getting at is just working on the Volkswagen stuff is kind of easier because I don't have to make a lot of the parts, because the original parts are in still very good condition. And I've come up with some ways to make it look a little better, even if it's little faded here or there. Sometimes I can touch them up.
And you started like doing scooter Speedos and gauges, stuff like that?
Yes.
So with something like that, you'd have to have like a sticker made for the face of it.
I did do that. And then eventually I started screen printing them, or having them screen printed. Which would be a little more authentic, because with the sticker, you've got some reflection with the Mylar, unless it's one of those type that you can, like a decal, we could slide it off onto the image, but that's kind of tricky. Right. Yeah. But I've done quite a few over the years as far as producing them. I had molds made to make the actual top plates on most of the stuff that I work on. So,
and then like, what's the first Speedo you redo for a Volkswagen where you're like, oh, you know what? I'll try my hand at this one. And I've done them for scooters. Let me do a Volkswagen one. I went on Samba and I found just a simple, like a Beetles Speedo from the mid 60s, kind of like my car. And I took it apart to see how it goes back together. And it was pretty easy, although I wasn't paying attention. I left some things out the first time, but went back in and figured out, okay, this should have been here. And, this is on my table. I should put that in there too. And I got a little better as I did several. So it's a lot of fun. Now, the internals and the gauges, they're all relatively the same as far as like the mileage odometer, all that stuff's relatively the same.
They are, but the early stuff has a different, they're slightly different in the lower mechanism in the drive. But I've done so many of all these different types that I feel pretty comfortable whenever it's whether a bay window or a late Karmann Ghias from, let's say, 67 into 72. Those are very similar in their design to the bay window stuff. And a lot of similarities like that make it pretty easy just to cross over.
And so, I mean, as you get comfortable work on the early ones and you look at the later ones, based on you were there on the original versions and then you swing into the second ones, you can see the evolutions are a little varied.
Exactly. Some things, for instance, early on, a lot of the gear on the pin, which is what I call where the odometer wheels rest, they were all brass. Then in roughly, I would say 73, 74, they changed to a plastic gear there. And that's why a lot of people have odometers on their Super Beetle from the mid 70s, where the odometer just stops working. And it's because this little plastic gear that they used then would get a little split in it, and the friction fit went away. So the gear would just spin by itself, but it wouldn't turn the pin or the odometer wheels. So that's kind of a bad design there. That was a bad choice. And I found a way to, with all the speedometers I bought over the years and stuff, I found gears that are similar in the amount of teeth, and these are made of brass. So it kind of remedies that problem.
And so on the later model, like the black face gauges, they switched that gear to plastic, which is why they would typically break.
Well, yes, if that's the problem on the odometer not working, that could have been the problem, but it wasn't consistently on the later bug stuff. It was more the Super Beetles went to that. But I have seen some that had it. But they're not really the biggest problem. It's definitely Super Beetle.
Now, with obviously the gauge is made by VDO. So I've often wondered, and I don't know if you have the answer for this, but like the VDO trip meter, right? Some people say they offered it as an option, which I don't see it a lot as an option, but I would think to myself, I think that Speedo shares a similarity with a Mercedes speedometer, but I'm not 100% sure. Only because I've seen those similar face gauges in some early Mercedes.
Okay.
And so I didn't know if that was a thing. And, tell me a little bit about the trip meters.
Okay. Well, the trip meters I've come across have a very similar screw pattern underneath into the housing, which is similar to the same screw pattern that's found on late 50s, early 60s Beetles, or even Karmann Ghias up to 1960 had that same screw pattern. So that's a perfect housing to, when I do come across these, to use to make a trip meter out of either a Beetles Speedo or Karmann Ghia. But getting back to the Mercedes thing, I have purchased a Mercedes Speedo just to see what it was about, but it was different. Even though it had a trip meter, it wasn't the same because it was more like in a cluster or a panel, let's say, where these are kind of like a single unit. And I wouldn't say that that's actually correct as far as the Mercedes and the options Speedo for the trip meter would be similar.
Now, when you see the option trip meters, do they have a stamping date on them that's similar to the year of the car, or what do they have?
That's a good question. I haven't seen enough because they're not that rare. I mean, they're not that common, I should say. Some do have a date of production, and I'm wondering if they only produced them at one period for that year. And of course, there's they went ahead and reproduced that trip meter in the early 70s as well. And it was more to kind of fill the market that had the bugs, and even Karmann Ghia, I guess you could have put it in. But it was a black-face dial with a red pointer, and it went up to 100 miles an hour. It's the same, everything about it as far as original factory stuff, and it was original factory, but the look wasn't the vintage look. It was kind of more just to fill the need.
Right, the modern look. So
yeah.
So when you now with those, so can you actually take, if someone sends you a Speedo and says, hey, Steve, can you make this? Can you add a trip meter to this? Are you able to add trip meters to existing speedometers?
Yes. One, though, I need to have that same housing that accepts the screw pattern of the trip meter. And that would be anything from roughly 59 down. But I'll give away my secret here. I use Porsche speedometers from late 60s into the early 70s because they had the same screw pattern. They have the same positioning from the one odometer to the next. And that allows me, if I take that and modify it, because it's not exactly the same, but I make little modifications here and there, and that becomes my trip meter mechanism. And then I just have to cut the face to line up for the one odometer or the other. Then I have plates made. I have to modify the housing for the trip arm because it extends beyond the housing of a regular Beetle Speedo. But it's all doable. But it takes, there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Now, with that being said, the different Volkswagens, obviously Volkswagen and the Porsche had different size wheels on them. Now,
right.
Is there any way to take and make and modify the mechanism inside to compensate for the wheels that people are changing to nowadays, or is it always going to be off based on the diameter of the tire?
There is a way, but I don't really know it because I'm self-taught. I didn't work in a speedometer shop or anything like that where video may have provided different gearing to make the difference. I could play around with something and see how that works and see how it's going to go from 1 mile to the next and how long it'll take at a certain RPM. But it's hit or miss, and I really don't know enough about it. So I can tweak the needle, but as far as the odometer spinning at the right speed to be accurate for the tires, that's kind of like just dumb luck sometimes.
Right. Yeah. I was interested in that because with the Volkswagen, it's like the standard tire size. I don't even know off the top of my head what it would be. The outside diameter, but it's probably somewhere closer to 24 to 26 inches. And then the rest of us would get these 15-inch wheels and put these little rubber band tires on them. And you're dropping your Speedo quite a bit. But that's what I thought. I thought, man, if somebody could make variable gauges for different stuff. And I know a lot of people are doing the GPS Speedos and stuff now with some of these aftermarket Speedo companies. But, I've had I had to help a guy. Matter of fact, last show I was at in Canada, guy had a nice bug and his car wasn't charging. And I said, do you have a stock Speedo? And he said, no, what does it have to do with it? I said, well, the aftermarket Speedos have LED lights for the dummy lights. And the problem is the dummy light's not an incandescent bulb and it won't ground your alternator. And so your alternator, it doesn't trigger the ground or close the loop so that your alternator it kicks on the voltage regulator. And so the problem is, I said, so this guy's going to a car show and I said, just go to the auto parts store, get a light bulb and just wire it between your 12 volt positive on your alternator and your trigger light. And when you turn the key on, it should light up. Once you start it, it'll turn off and it'll start charging the car.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, because I had that happen to me with my crew cab. I did aftermarket autometer gauges because it was kind of more of a custom look. And I said, I'm going to do these cool. I drilled the bezel in my bus and put these countersunk LEDs that had this chrome bezel around them. And I said, I'll do these for my dummy lights. And the problem was, obviously, that my alternator wouldn't charge to save my life. And I'm like, what is going on here? And what happens is, everybody just, in everyone's head, just an LED is an LED. Well, an LED is a light emitting diode. If you know electronic basics, a diode is designed to only let power go through one way.
Okay.
And what happens is it won't complete the circuit and it needs the ground through with the resistance of the incandescent bulb, so that it can complete the ground that triggers the voltage regulator. So yeah, it was some of these new Speedos are having some stuff like that now, and a lot of guys are doing like a GPS style Speedo. And I'm assuming you don't do anything like that because you're more into just the vintage restoration of the gauges.
Exactly. I do sell LED bulbs, and I can only get negative ground.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't know there could be a problem as far as recharging. So
Yeah. So
yeah, that's
yeah, it has, but if it's an LED bulb that screws in the same way that uses the ground circuit, it may work fine. But
I see.
I don't know. I know, but my experience with the LED bulbs has been a little bit of a challenge sometimes with charging on those. But
Yeah.
yeah. So with doing the Speedo, how has this become? So you were doing surfboards for a long time, and now you moved on to doing the Speedos. So is the Speedo thing your full time thing now, or is it still kind of a weekend and hobby and afternoon type deal?
Oh no, it's a full time thing, and especially because I'm based out of my own home, I can work on it and take off and do stuff and come back, and it's great. I love it.
Now you do just the Speedos, or do you gas gauges and stuff as well?
I've done a few gas gauges. Let's see, with the split window buses, I can do those and tune up the face, paint the needle, put a new chrome ring on there, and I can run a little diode in there to change them from 6 volt to 12 volt for the earlier ones. And then I can also do some of the Beetle fuel gauges, but I'm referring to the ones with the cable that have the float in the tank. And with those, I pretty much do the same thing. I take them apart. I have a replacement lens, paint the needle, and replace the spring sometimes if that's worn out and doesn't want to return. But those are the two fuel gauges I feel pretty comfortable doing.
Now, what's the most popular Speedo you're getting to rebuild most of the time?
Well, that's a good question. I have customers sometimes. One guy up in Oregon. And he'll send me sometimes once a year, he'll send me 20 to go through, and they're always bus Speedos. Currently, I'm doing some stuff for a shop called Myers-Manx. They're not far from where I live in Torrance. And they sent me a package of probably 20 Speedos about 3 weeks ago. And about 2 months ago, they sent me another package with almost the same, but there was a lot of junk in that. So a lot of that stuff wasn't really salvageable.
Yeah.
But I'd have to say probably the bug Speedos, whether they're early or mid 60s. It's probably the most I do.
So now I know I sent you a couple 68s. That's how we kind of met. I think I met you at one of the bus shows, and I can't remember if it was a bus show. I think it might have been Octo, where I saw you. You may have had some Speedos up for sale, and I talked to you for a minute, grabbed your card, and then it was like a year later, I just mailed you a package with the 68 Speedos, and then I just recently sent you that barn door Speedo I just had sitting in my display case, and I thought, yeah, I might as well have this thing redone. And then I pulled a Speedo out of my Beetle barn bus and decided to shoot that over to you. But with the early Speedos, is anything? I mean, obviously because of age, right? Things can be a bit more challenging on those. What's probably the more difficult one to do, early or late?
Well, I haven't done many early stuff. I have done a barn door before, and I've done even like an early Porsche with the black face with the green lettering and stuff. And I think I've also done an early one for a bug. The mechanisms are really similar. The housing seems to be a little smaller, so I don't have a bezel that I can replace. So I'd have to either use the one that came with it, or maybe not even be able to finish it if I didn't have that. So it's the same, but little tricks here and there, and once again, the face dials aren't available, at least not that I'm aware of. I think there are stickers out there, but I haven't really looked into that.
Now, if you were to find the ultimate hoard for you, with stuff being discontinued, unavailable, and things like that, what would be like the ultimate thing to stumble into if you were out there looking and just round into a box of these?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know where to begin. There's so many things I would want, but I don't know. Maybe low light Karmann Ghias, because those are kind of rare, or early bugs with the clear needles.
So the clear needle, do you try to restore the needle that's existing, or do you have replacement needles?
I have replacement needles.
And those are available through sources that you can get replacement clear needles.
Exactly. And they're really nice too.
So if you got an oval window that's looking a little foggy or jacked up, now did they change those clear needles to like? Are there different color clear needles, or are they all just that kind of foam needle or the sort of plastic dip needle looking thing?
I think they're. I haven't seen anything different unless somebody did a modification, but they're basically a clear acrylic with the white paint down the strip in the recess there. And I've seen mediocre ones, and I've seen really good ones, and they are beautiful when they're that nice. And let's see, yeah, that's about it.
Now with the buses, I mean, how late of a Speedo can you restore up to? What's like the latest you've done?
I don't even think I've ever done a Vanagon, but I've done mid 70s bay windows. But ideally, I like the split window stuff.
Yeah, and then with those gauges, what are some of the more like what's typically the number one thing that goes wrong with the Speedo, and is it something somebody can fix at home, or is it something that, and not trying to take work away from you, but somebody like, oh, someone sent me a thing, while I've got it, I might as well restore it, which is probably what most people do, right? They want to have it all gone through, cleaned, and looking good, and change all the filament, all that stuff in there. But what's the number one thing that causes the Speedos to stop working?
Well, I think the fact that the drive gets a little dry. Ideally, they probably should be serviced every couple of years, where they're broken down. The drive itself is pulled out. The drive frame is cleaned, lubricated. Then the drive is repositioned, and probably just a little maintenance here and there would keep them from freezing up and breaking cables. Other than that, they're so solid. They're really well made. And of course, there's other little things that might be a problem, but I think with the mechanism being properly lubed, and we're just doing regular maintenance every, let's say, 3-4 years. That's just a guess, but so many of us have Speedos that haven't been touched for forever, and luckily they keep going until they don't.
And how do you service a Speedo? Like to do a service on it if you're looking for, wherever you've got is there an access hole for oil or something like that on the Speedo, or where do you put it?
No, you pretty much have to take the chrome bezel off with the lens and the gaskets, and then drop the rest of the mechanism with the face dial attached, the needle attached, out of the bucket or the housing. And then I would take the face off, take the needle, take the face off, and then break the mechanism into two pieces, where it's the upper portion with the hairspring, the speed cup, the odometer, and the cage. And then the lower portion would be the drive frame, the drive. And then there's this little, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a little, oh gosh, it's almost a triangular shape, but it's curved and round, and it goes up, and it has like this little opening in it. And I heard a guy that helps me in the past with some of my Speedo work from a regular shop. He referred to it as the jewel. And the jewel, I think, is where the tip of the needle rests, and it kind of pivots off of that. And it's nice to put a little grease there as well. But it's basically break it apart. And by break, I mean disassemble it. Yeah. And then just lubricate it and adjust it. And there's not a whole lot that needs to be done, really. Just a couple things, and put it back together and make sure it spins freely. There's no sound. There's no, sometimes I get a little hiccup in the travel, and I'm wondering what that is. And it could be something very simple. So
when you say that, you mean like it's bouncing a little bit?
Well, pretty much like, let's say I put the drill into it and I trigger it, and it goes from 0 to 90. And then I start to lower the speed, and as it comes back, it might go from 90 to 60 and stop. And it kind of makes a pause there, and then it'll come down to about 30, and it makes a little stop, and then it goes. So it's not like it's flipping around or anything like that, but it's got this kind of hesitation, let's just say. But I think it's only because it's in the drill, because it's all of a sudden goes 0 to 90 in 2 seconds, and then it's coming from 90 to 60 and a couple of seconds. And so in your car, I would think it would just be as you hit the brakes and slow down, it would just come back. But because it's more controlled.
Yeah. And then with some of those, now with the 68, specifically 68 and later speedometers, they have the vibrator on the back. Do you have you have new ones of those, or are those difficult to source, and how does that whole thing work?
Yes, they are difficult. I have a few that are used that I clean up. That's one of those things I'd like to come across and have like a box of those. So that's what should have gone through my head earlier with that first question about a find. I'm told or I've seen them on like the later Super Beetle, where it's a plastic configuration, and rather than having, I think, a diode or some type of wire in there, they have like a light bulb to create the resistance, which is kind of clever. But for some reason, I've heard a lot of complaints about those not working that well.
And that's for the fuel gauge.
Yes.
So the original they called them vibrators. The original vibrators, they don't. There's not a source to get those reproduced. You can find them NOS, but other than that, there's not really anybody reproducing those.
Not that I know of, but I'd sure like to come across someone.
And the later model ones will work for the earlier cars?
Yeah, they should. It's pretty much the same voltage drop, if that's the term for this, or same amount of resistance.
Now, when you see that, when you do someone's Speedo and they put it back in, is there a common problem you see people do with whether it's the light wiring or any of that kind of stuff that they typically have an issue with? Anything that comes to mind that you usually see, like when I do this, I send someone a Speedo and there's usually like an issue with A, B, and C.
Well, not so much. If there's an issue, it's probably something I missed. And then I'm become aware of it and try not to do it so often. Other than that, I don't think it's...
I'm typically thinking of the wiring for the turn signal housing, like that the three lights on the bottom, because some people may get confused on how that works, because there's a common power element going to all of those, and then they're triggered by grounds. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah.
I've noticed a lot of old cars I've picked up were kind of wired completely incorrectly, and stuff's like super funky. So sometimes I figured that was more than just my luck of seeing a lot of those vehicles wired that way.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, where I've seen people grounding on just the body of the speedometer housing rather than the actual the actual ground. But as you mentioned, that little configuration there with the generator, oil, and the blinkers, especially on a Bug, those three like that in that little bulb holder, the big light bulb holder there, and it has its own ground right there, where everything else, like the lighting for the Speedo and the high beam, they ground into the frame. But yeah, if someone could make a mistake and have placed power to something that should have been grounded, that might spark or not work. And then the problem with the LED bulbs, I tell people that you can use these bulbs that I have, but only in this usage right here. It's not going to work on these bulbs because of the separate ground. And I don't know if that would be a positive ground, but I just know the bulbs won't work unless they're grounded into the frame.
And now you said you have replacement LED bulbs for the illumination on the Speedo?
Yes.
And are they adjustable with do they adjust? Because obviously the voltage would adjust from the headlight switch, where you can kind of dim them a little bit, and they still work good with the dimmer and all that.
You know something? I believe they do. I really just haven't done anything like that. I pretty much just put them in and turn my lights on, and they're good. And I don't drive a whole lot at night, so I don't really notice or take notice.
And then lastly, like what's it typically run to do a speedometer? Like what's the price range it costs to rebuild a speedometer? Depending on, obviously it's all depending on condition, right? And the easiest,
Exactly.
most cost effective one is one that doesn't need any cosmetic stuff. Just run it through a good cleaning, rebuild the internals and send it back out. That would be probably like your basic, right?
Right. Something like that with return shipping would probably be around 100. If it was going to, for instance, if the person wanted the housing replated to look nice and it needed a new clear needle and a new chrome ring, then you're looking more around 150, sometimes even a little higher, depending on, let's say I have to replace the face dowel because it's just so bad.
Or somebody shot it with a BB gun.
Have you had that happen?
Well, that's the one I sent you. The barn door one was shot in the middle with like a BB gun. That's what, because it was in a junkyard.
Oh gosh.
So,
Well, let's see. I got it right here, and I thought I noticed something. There's like a little indentation on it.
yeah, it's
Okay, I'm looking at it.
kind of shattered, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I thought I might see like a little divot or impression on it. I see a little spot between the 10 and the 20, and it's got some rust on it, which I don't want to try to remove because it'll probably remove all the paint underneath. But yeah, I can't really tell, but it's a pretty neat little plate. I like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, because the barn door Speedo that I sent you was pretty tattered up. So that one's gonna need some deep surgery. But
Yeah.
the other one was pretty decent. And what was interesting is it came out of a 19, like it's stamped 461, but it came out of like a 59. Of course, the car I pulled it out was a Franken bus, right? It's a 59. It's a 56 and 59 welded together as 3 feet longer. But yeah, it's definitely. I'm restoring it because needles broke, a little bit of this and that, but and it started squealing before it just blew out. So
Yeah.
and then so anybody's looking to get a Speedo done, it's going to be anywhere from $100 to a couple $100, depending on how much work it needs. And then obviously, if it needs the back housings plated, stuff like that, that takes a little bit of extra time because you've got to batch those and send them out together. And then are you getting stuff re-chromed as well?
No, I'm not. For one, if I re-chrome the bezel, a lot of times the chrome might be on there too thick, and then you try to roll it back down and it'll flake, and it's just not pretty. I mean, they look great on one side, but the other side it's just not going to work. But I can get really nice chrome bezels, new, and that's working out really well for me. Nice.
Well, that's great, man. And then anything, so with respect to Speedo King, best way somebody gets in touch with you to send you their Speedos and all that stuff is to go to your website?
Yes, speedoking.com. And I can give you my email address if you don't already have that.
Yeah, no. Well, and this is just for people that are out there listening that are like, hey, man, I'd like to get my Speedo redone. So what's your email? Someone wants to send you an email with photographs of their Speedos and get a quote, all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously you can give them something, but not everything changes once you open it up.
Exactly. The email address is steve@speedoking.com.
Nice. And then anything that now I see on your website you do the novelty face plates, but that is now what's the story behind that? And are those for Volkswagens?
Yes and no. The ones you see are for Vespas, and the novelty came from surfboards. And for a period there, we were doing longboards with Hawaiian fabric on just the nose. So at the beginning of the nose, we'd tape it off and take it back about maybe 2.5 feet and put a line straight across, laminate that fabric on there, and then trim it on the tape line. And that was a look that the shop that I worked for was doing for a couple of years. And I had the idea to take the same type of Hawaiian fabric and put it on a sheet of glass. And that's how back in the old days, that's how we used to make the fin panels. We'd lay up 30 layers of fiberglass on a sheet of glass. And then when it dried, you can pretty much lift it off because it doesn't adhere to the glass. Anyways, I laminated some Hawaiian fabric with maybe 2 layers, 3 layers of fiberglass on it to build up a little thickness. And then I had those laser cut. And I did them for various Vespa speedometers, or a few Lambretta speedometers. I have a ton of them still. And I even cut a few for the trip meters on split window buses. I have some red Hawaiian.
Oh, really?
And I only did a couple. But that was an idea I had, just to do something novel.
Yeah, I think it would be something that some people like, especially guys that are customizing their cars, and they're going to go with a stock Volkswagen gauge to do a special dial. I wonder what would be the, because the thing is trying to figure out what you could do to customize it, but it appeals to a broader base of people so that you could make 10 at a time and actually sell them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's maybe I'll come up with something to do a specialty one. That would be pretty cool. So now with that being said, if I called you and said, "Hey Steve, listen, I'm building a custom car and can you make me a gauge face? I know it's going to cost a few bucks to do it, but can you make me a custom gauge face for this thing?" So you'd have the capability to do something like that. If somebody gives you a pretty good idea, you have the ability to do that.
Well, not in the same way where I did the lamination of the fabric, but if I had, let's say, a decal or sticker that I could apply to something and go with that, or perhaps screen print, although that gets expensive as well with setting up of the screen and cleaning and printing. And then when it's one piece only, it's a lot of setup charges involved.
So on a Volkswagen gauge, if somebody said, "Hey, I've got these aftermarket gauges, can you change this dial or paint this dial to match those aftermarket gauges, like a silver with black lettering or something like that?" Is that something that you have the capability of doing?
No, I couldn't do that. And I don't know anyone who could or should or would, but that is, it's really involved, and it would be very expensive and very little return for all the trouble and expense. So, and I don't know when I could use it again to get any life out of it. So I try to avoid taking those on.
No, I hear you. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. Anything that we didn't touch on, you think we needed to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I thought you had some great ideas and questions for me about certain things. So, as soon as I hang up, I'll think of something great. And I'm like, oh, crap.
Well, listen, you're if anything changes with what you do or something you're offering, kind of your display of things that you offer widens up and you want to come back on and shoot me a blurb of what you're doing, man, we're more than welcome to have you back on. And I just wanted to kind of get you on here with respect to speedometer restoration. Now, if people want to restore their speedometers themselves, do you sell a DIY rebuild kit or no?
I could, depending on what they want to add to it, and if they feel the lens is still great. I'm not going to twist their arm to buy a new lens, but I could provide them with the lens, gaskets, the chrome bezel, the pointer, whether it's a white pointer or a clear needle pointer. And I could do all that.
And the LED light kit.
I could only be partially helpful there because unless I can get the same LEDs in positive ground as well, right, and then make sure they know use these in this location, use these in that. Other than that, though, I don't really come across those often.
Right.
But I could provide some to light the face and maybe do the high beam.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool. Well, great, man. Well, look, Steve, I'm glad you made the time. I know you're busy. I know you're swamped doing you're looking at a mountain of Speedos over there, but for sure, I appreciate your time and thanks for the information on speedometers, man. And I know you've done some great work for me, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here because, the work you did for me, I was super happy with. And, if people are looking for a source to get their speedometers rebuilt, man, go check out Speedo King.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for all the kind words, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, well, hey, I may see you at the next bus meet in October. I may see you at Octo, if you're there.
Okay.
And I'll stop by and say hey, and appreciate the work you've done for me, man. And anybody needs their Speedo redone, reach out to us. Go to speedoking.com and get with Steve, and he'll get you all set up.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was good stuff.
All right, Bill. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, if you guys like that podcast, make sure you subscribe to Let's Talk Dubs for your weekly update on what's happening in the Volkswagen scene, resources, people that make the hobby what it is. So appreciate Steve for coming on, man, and look forward to seeing you guys coming up at One Crazy Weekend. Don't forget to go get your room booked today. One Crazy Weekend, you can get to that through letstalkdubs.com and click on the One Crazy Weekend link on the main page. Go get your rooms booked today. 30 days out, they'll be closing off the room. So if you guys want to make it to One Crazy Weekend in Las Vegas, the greatest VW show that happens, period. Don't believe me? Come check it out. So we got lots of people coming to check it out this year. We've already surpassed rooms sold the day of the event last year. So I'm looking for a substantially larger group this year. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't be the one that's sitting home looking at the pictures, watching Instagram, wishing you were here. Make sure you guys go book your rooms today at letstalkdubs.com. Well, guys, it's been great, and I missed last week for you guys, but unfortunately, sometimes I get a little bit busy and have some stuff set up. But listen, we'll keep them coming for you guys. And until next week, guys, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.